Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting bonus episode of King Me Rev's Hype Podcast, where I, the Rev Dude, as always, is here live on Riverside. Now, today I have a very special, and I'm genuinely excited for this guest. We are going to be talking about subjects that are near and dear to my heart, and quite frankly, just a subject that I've had way too many people ask me too many questions about over the last 13 years. And what I'd like to be able to finally do is to just send them a link to a podcast like this, ta-da, you might be one of them, and say, please answer, please go ahead and find the answers to all of your various and random questions in this podcast form. So joining me today is, as her handle would say, Maggie Eats Vegan. Maggie, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. And I know we've conversed a little bit, but I would presume being someone who's been vegan, and hopefully as I go along today, as I like to always say, my research has panned out, because you just never know with information on the internet if it's true or not, but it comes up, so you gotta have to grab it. It says that you've been vegan for 14 years now, is that correct?
Yes, that's what I tell everyone, and that's what I say online. I don't have the exact date like some vegans do. So I don't have my vegan anniversary. It was because I was mostly vegan for so long and vegetarian before that, so it's kind of approximately 14 years, correct?
Okay, that makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Myself, I became a vegan shortly after, well, I should say shortly after my daughter's first birthday. So I have the esteemed luxury and pleasure of always knowing that particular date. So for so I and as I like to do, every once in a while I'll throw a curveball, right? To kind of, I like to make it fun for the audience as well as the guest and for
Mhm.
myself. So what I'd like to do for a curveball today, and I didn't forewarn you because I thought this would be more fun, so pardon
Okay.
me on that. Could you give me just a couple of questions? Because I'm very curious. Could you give me a couple of questions that you've had asked repeatedly to no end
Oh
as a
yeah.
vegan?
Oh yeah. Where do you get your protein? Isn't it hard when you travel? Uh, I'm trying to think of some others like that are more common. I should be able to just rattle these off by now, but I mean the main one, the protein one is like still the main one I get asked. That's definitely the first question I get asked, and then people people ask all sorts of things like, do I miss certain foods, or like, isn't it restrictive, or they start going into about how, they could go vegan except for certain things. So I get all sorts of responses, but I would say the protein is still oh, does soy give you man boobs? That's another one, which is wild. Like some of these like myths that are out there, I didn't think I would be having to bust them 14 years in, but people still believe some of this stuff, which is crazy to me.
All right. So thank you for that, because that is very similar to my experience and to many other people's experiences. I also get the idea of like, where do you get your B12? And it's like, they're
Yes.
called multivitamins. It's really not
Yes.
that difficult, right? So I thought it would be best to kind of just address some of those, but I thought it'd be more fun to ask you first, because
Yeah.
we are on we may be complete strangers. I literally have seen you for the first time, talk to you the first time, literally as we're going right now. But we do have a shared experience in that perspective. And that's why, I've watched your videos for a little while and I've just enjoyed them, to be quite frank, because I'm like, all right, she gets it, like there's that in a world right now where we seem to over label everything and devise ourselves in so many different ways, which I understand sometimes labels are important, and I'm not trying to bash anybody's politics.
Hmm.
I just like to be able to feel like I'm a human and you're a human and we can connect on that basic level, right?
Hmm. Totally.
So with all due respects, because the last things I want to do is get down to a thing of politics. Ugh, bro, blah, blah. No, thank you. No, thank you. Go talk to somebody who gets paid to do that. I don't care. All right. So Yeah, protein. The funny thing for me, especially like going through like Forks Over Knives and that those type of documentaries, there was a
Yep.
really cluster of documentaries, I'd say around 2012, 2013 that were just a bit eye-opening that, like Forks Over Knives, and of course it just flew right out of my head when I was going to say it. Isn't that how it goes? There's a doc. Have you seen Forks Over Knives?
Yeah, that was the one that really solidified my decision to go vegan. So it wasn't like the reason I went vegan, but it was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this. So yeah, that was monumental for me.
Right. And have you seen Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So though
Yep.
that I that's why I let you answer the question because I had time to think. Haha. The beauty of magic and time, right? So Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. If you people haven't seen it yet, please go see it because I could just butcher the synopsis and that would not be beneficial for anyone. Just watch it, okay? Google it, watch it, listen and learn because they were very instrumental for me and it made me rethink the way I thought of food, right?
Hmm.
And one story that I haven't really discussed and I haven't really said out loud, and I'm sure people ask you this question, and I'm going to ask you this question because hopefully for the both of us, we could just be like, watch this podcast and I don't have to answer these silly questions anymore, right? People ask me why I went vegan and were you like was I a political activist? Did I worry about animals and blah, 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 blah. And it was adjacent to that. It became that over time. But quite frankly, and this may shock you when I say this because it does shock people when I tell them live, I became a vegan out of pure spite.
Oh, interesting. Can you elaborate?
Certainly. So I watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead,
Hmm.
right? And at the time, I had realized that I had celiac disease.
Oh,
So
okay.
I knew I needed to do something to cleanse my body of
Yeah.
these, let's say evil materials, right?
Yeah.
And with all due respect, gluten is the most delicious thing on earth. So when I call it evil, it's semantical, people. Don't at me, all right? This guy said that my bread. I'm just kidding. It would kill me. It's fine for you. I don't care, all right? I miss it dearly. In fact, I've actually written a love letter or two saying, gluten, how I miss you on my lips. Please love me one more time, right? It's not possible, guys. It would be not worth it, okay? So I watched The Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. I said, you know what? I'm going to do a 30-day juice cleanse. And everyone in my life said, you can't do that. You don't have the
Mm.
tenacity to survive. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a 60-day juice cleanse. How dare you tell me what I can and cannot do? Then they said, that's wild. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a 90-day juice cleanse. And they were like, you are absolutely stupid. You'll never survive a 90-day juice cleanse. And I said, how about this? I'm just going to become a vegan. And guess what? I've been vegan for 12 years. So, in your face, everyone who doubted me. Ha ha ha.
I love that. My younger brother has kind of a similar story where it's not, I mean, he always loved animals and all of that, but my mom literally paid him like I think it was like $20 at the time to try it for a week. And then he's been vegan like 16 years. So
Right? It's a different story. And eventually, as I like to say, once you're in the pool, once you get wet, you kind of start looking at everything else, right? So
exactly.
I got I dipped my toe in, got the foot into the whole veganism thing, and I was like, well, you know what? It is kind of freaky that these are, I started learning what they put in the food,
Yep.
and I was just like, that's disgusting. And it just escalated from there to the point where I'm just like, it is kind of gross, like I'm actually at the point where if I smell someone cooking meat, I'm not gonna like yell at them and say, you're a horrible person and blah 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 blah. If you do that, that's on you. That's
Yeah.
you want to take my vegan card, here you go. Merry Christmas. All right, guys, Merry Christmas. But what I'm saying is when I see it, it just disgusts me now because I just think this is like fatty tissue and like muscle of an animal and like people are like, oh, it's so juicy, and I'm like, those are sweat glands. Like that's
Isn't it
gross.
wild? Once you like see it, you can't unsee it. Like I don't even look at it as food anymore. Like people are like, "Don't you miss it? Doesn't it look delicious?" No. Like
No, not at
yeah, I
all.
was never really a fan of like the obvious meat when I was a kid. It had to be like super processed, otherwise I like wouldn't want to eat it. Like I remember going to my best friend in fourth grade's house and her mom made steak and I just like I was trying to be polite and get it down and I was like I can't do this. Like it was just too real for me. And that's when I like kind of started making the connection, but I know once you it doesn't really matter how you get through the door to veganism, but once you like get through, you start learning all sorts of things. So it's like you could go for the animals, you could go vegan for health, whatever the aspect is. And then you're gonna things just start kind of unraveling and you're like, oh, very eye-opening.
Right? Perception is reality. So
Yep.
you start seeing everything from a new perspective. I can say that, I'm sure a lot of people were, I have a different story where I actually worked at the Texas Roadhouse for about 10 years. So I
Oh,
like to say that I've probably forgotten more about meat than most vegans ever knew,
yeah.
or even some meat eaters for that point, right? But the idea is that, never doubt Mr. Evans because he'll do it anyways. Oh, there we go. So a lot of
Funny.
people always ask me, and then I could also concur with the idea of, when I bring up the whole idea of veganism, either they have no really idea what it means, they try to feed me fish, they try to
Yeah.
feed me chicken,
Yep.
um, or they always like, I've noticed with men, it's normally, I could never go vegan, insert red meat here. And with women, marginally speaking, it's I could never go vegan, insert cheese, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you could tell me if you've gotten different responses, but
No, I feel like that's pretty common. I feel like a lot of people, I mean, actually nowadays it's very much yeah, cheese and red meat. The red meat thing is crazy to me because I feel like it just like all of a sudden got popular again and like I don't know. I'm like didn't like people like don't people realize that's a group 2A carcinogen? Like people just like don't care, I guess. So,
no. And I've shared this personal philosophy before, and I'm gonna share it again. Um, Before this was something I developed in about 2015 because I had so many people ask that same question. Well, don't you miss the flavor of this? And don't you miss the flavor of that? And don't you miss And I would say to them, okay, let me ask you a serious question. I want you to stop. I want you to close your eyes. And maybe the people at home can follow along here. Close your eyes, all right? And I want you to imagine all of the foods that you eat in your life, all right? Maybe it's a steak or a chicken sandwich or whatever it is. I want you to think about it. Then I want you to ask yourself, right? If I were to wake up tomorrow and I could never taste food again, would I continue to eat these items? And if the answer is no, then now you understand why I don't eat them.
mhm. That's
Because
a good way to put it.
right?
Yeah.
I don't care if it tastes good, okay? Because you know what tastes good? Little Debbie snack cakes. You want to know why? Because sugar is the most addictive chemical on earth, all
Oh
right?
yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should eat them every day. Are you not an adult? You're just
Yeah.
gonna eat you're gonna eat Twinkies all day every day because
There
it tastes good?
Yeah, there are people's jobs who would, food scientists. They go to school, they get really good at developing foods that people become essentially addicted to. Like that's their
Of
whole
course.
job. Yet we continue, eating those. I mean, yeah, we continue eating those foods, but it takes some discipline in the beginning and then it just becomes, autopilot. So,
Yes, and when I first went vegan, I went full force into vegan, gluten-free, um, straight edge, and I got rid of all sugar products. And it was funny because within 3 months, like something like kale that would have been almost unappetizing to me, was completely unappetizing me to be before then, became nourishing. And I was like, oh, you can actually taste. It doesn't just taste like dirt, right? So
yeah,
this
absolutely.
I have flavor in this. And then after a couple of years, I finally had like my first sweet, like maybe a cookie or something. And all I could taste was the sugar. And I was just like, ugh, like
Yeah.
this doesn't have that same, I don't know. Basically, I'm assuming because the addiction of my body was so far removed that it was like, what is this foreign concept? But the idea of, like, let's say having a salad was literally just an everyday occurrence. It wasn't some weird random scheme. So,
Yep, absolutely. Your taste buds actually change, which I think is one of the coolest parts. And I've had that experience because I've kind of like gone. low sugar, no sugar at, different times. And lately, since January, I've kind of been doing less sugar and which is why my content has kind of changed on my channel. I was doing a lot of the like more donuts and all the cookies, things like that. And it's like if people want to eat that stuff, that's fine. I eat it once in a while. But when
Yeah,
you're eating it like, 3 times a day, every single day in everything you consume, yeah, you kind of just become, you just want like more sugar and like things aren't sweet enough. And then when you cut it out, you're like, it's like a reset and you're like, yeah, craving vegetables and fruit. I had fruit the other day and I was like, this is so sweet. I was like, why does this taste so sweet? You can just taste things more.
you really can. And that's one of my biggest arguments over the past like 13 years, especially with women I've dated, because they're the first ones to like, let's give this child candy. And I'm like, why are you going to give them synthetic chemicals that are mutated to taste like a strawberry when you could just give them a damn strawberry?
Yeah.
Why are we cut out the middleman, all
Yeah.
right, and get away from this sugar molecular structured nonsense and
Yeah.
just give them the fruit. Why do I need you to give me something that pretends to be fruit when
Yeah.
I could just eat fruit? It makes zero sense. And that's coming from, I mean, quite frankly, I am a ginger with a sweet tooth. Let me tell you. I could knock them back. You put a cake in front of me, it's gone in about 38 seconds, all right? So
Yeah.
I already know how delicious that cake is, but I get the reason why it's delicious is because my brain is responding to those neuroreceptors that shouldn't be used all the time. Let's be
Yep.
honest.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's thank you once again for indulging on that little trip of mine. But it's just there's just so many people that say those same things over and over again, and I'm just like, I'm t- I don't I mean obviously your social media handle is Maggie Eats Vegan, but so you may not be as fatigued as I am, and I pray you don't become, but I have stopped even telling people I'm a vegan because there's always the weird questions that just come up, or it becomes my only trait as a human being, my only characteristic. Oh, you're
Yeah.
that vegan guy. And I'm like, I have a name.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of just become like the token vegan in the friend group and whatever. But
Right,
yeah, I
right.
made it kind of my career, so it's a little bit of a different story for me. But yeah.
Yeah. You want people to know that you're the token vegan, right? Because
Yeah.
that's your thing. So I mean, that's why I have you here because I'm like, all right, I need to get one of those people that aren't afraid to shout out they're a vegan
Yeah.
and shameless self promotion, I guess. Well, not really self promotion, but for all of my regular fans, because I don't know if I mentioned this, my normal crowd is professional wrestling.
Yes.
We have Sean Vegan Keegan, who is up for the Chaotic Wrestling Tag Team Championship. And Sean, I love you, buddy. I hope you get those titles. And you in the Vegan Society can go on and show people how strong actual vegans are. Plant based power for life. All right, Sean? Woo! So,
Yeah. I love seeing vegan athletes like outperform their peers. Yeah, it's incredible.
right. And Sean's been on the podcast. He's a good buddy of mine. And it was nice to see that representation in something like professional wrestling. I'm an old man, right? I'm 40 years old. As my daughter would say, I'm a dinosaur at this point. But I always say, hey, you know what? I don't look too bad for 40 though, all right? So
Yeah.
you lay off me, kid.
Yeah. Veganism,
So,
it'll do that. I'm
right?
35. Yeah. So,
Yeah, exactly. The power of the vegan.
yeah.
Um, but Sean, he's a great performative athlete, and he's wise enough to he has a whole clique of people who are within his vegan society, and they do their thing, and I gotta make sure, especially we're on an episode about veganism. How am I not going to shout out my buddy Sean Vegan Keegan? So,
Yeah, it's so
uh,
cool.
all right, so jumping into it. So, you said roughly 14 years. You don't have an exact date. C'est la vie. My research said that you um were able to see dairy cows close up in New Zealand, right? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, no, I actually just posted a video about that this morning because someone was asking why I went vegan, and that was that was really the turning point for me. I'd been mostly vegan before that, just because when I was 12 years old, I went vegetarian. My cousins, I grew up in the Midwest, so lots of casseroles and all of that. I stayed one summer in Indiana with my cousins. They were PETA activists, which was like not common for that area. And so they really inspired me to go vegetarian. And then I went back home, told my parents. My mom ended up going vegan a few years after. I think maybe, I don't know if she went vegetarian first, but anyway, she was mostly vegan, went vegan, and then she just started cooking that way. So that's what we were eating. And I would still eat dairy, eggs if it was mixed into like a birthday cake at my friend's house or pick something up at the store. But um I would say I was like very, very little compared to most people. And then when I went to New Zealand one summer, I was an au pair, about 21 years old, and my host family, they were great. The dad was a dairy farmer. He took me one morning to go just kind of experience, but help out milking the cows. And I was, I'm so glad I had that experience and I'm really grateful for it. But it was very eye-opening. It was pretty horrifying. To just see these animals, these like living, breathing animals who experience emotions, uh, be hooked up to machinery and like they were crying essentially and like kicking and trying to get away. And we just had to hook them up and it was cold and they were pooping everywhere. And then at the end of the shift, they took all of the cows who could no longer produce milk or just were deemed unworthy. They took them away to be killed. And I think that for me, I remember seeing one of the girls I was working with, she was just sobbing. And I was like, I can't support this industry anymore. Not to mention, that's like on the animal rights side, but on the health side, just looking at what was coming out of them, I was like so unappetized. I was like, why would I consume that? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me when there's soy milk, rice milk, whatever at the time. So I went back and I told my host mom, okay, I'm vegan now. She kept buying skim milk because it looked like soy milk. So I like politely drank skim milk for like, it was in the same kind of carton. I drank that for the rest of the trip. And then when I got home, I was like, I'm all in. I'm vegan now. It was, I think having that firsthand experience for me was like so important because we're so distant from our food and how it's produced. You don't even think twice about it. And then when you like actually see how it's produced, you can't really turn away.
You're absolutely correct, and you nailed a couple of great topics I'd love to bring up. First of all, I'm sure my lawyers would like for me to say that we are not doctors and we're not giving medical advice. So before I keep going here, we did not give you medical advice. Please seek a medical professional. We are talking about our opinions and experiences and our life in general. So with what you said, um, you kind of touched upon two things, and one of them that's actually been main, like a main storyline, I guess, or a subject matter for myself when talking about veganism with carnivores who are, but I call them, straight meatheads, to be honest with you. For you meatheads out there who are always like, relatively speaking, busting my chops, for lack of a better term, as to why I'm a vegan. Most of those people have never experienced firsthand anything, let alone what you experienced. And that was the reason why some of the only people that I've genuinely had respect for were people like Anthony Bourdain, um, people who were like, I'm going to do this not only in a humane way, but I'm going to be actively involved in it, because the people who are not actively involved and have never seen it done are the first ones to cringe when it happens, but they're also the first ones to complain when you don't eat the chicken. So I
Yeah.
find it to be distinctly hypocritical for those particular individuals to genuinely avoid the subjects in just downright, they wouldn't watch a video of how a pig is slaughtered or a cow is
Yeah.
slaughtered or something is milked. They would
Yep.
run away from that, but they are the first ones to pick up a steak. And in
Yep.
my opinion, if you're going to have the audacity to eat the food, you should at least have the knowledge of where that food comes from.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just, I mean, if you're a child, let's be honest.
you don't have much.
There's always extenuating circumstances here, so I don't want to pin myself in a corner. But marginally speaking, I'm speaking of the meatheads who are attacking me in this particular example. Those are the ones that I would say are hypocritical at best, because
Yeah,
they are the ones who are pretending like steak is everything, but they've never actually seen it created. So I don't know if you have anything to share on that subject at all.
totally. I mean, it might be a hot take in the vegan community, but I am so against hunting. Like, I do not like it, but I also have more respect for those people than people who just kick back and are served a steak or a hamburger because I mean, it's crazy that they're killing the animal and then still eating it. That's crazy to me, but they at least are involved in that process and, aren't just like paying someone else to do the dirty work. It's yeah, and then turning a blind eye. So I don't know. It's complicated.
Of course.
I'm not like, oh, I love hunting, but I
Yeah.
do think that especially the way that animals are farmed in America is out of control. Like the factory farming is a huge problem. Like in other countries and cultures, it's not maybe I mean it might be today, but I feel like it wasn't always like that. And I have more respect when it is, less of a production, I suppose, or like you're like you said, like more involved in the process. It's just like nowadays, served to you on a platter, really.
Literally, literally just sliced up and served to you on a platter. And I mean, and once again, I don't condone the murder of animals in general, which is why I
Yeah.
took the thing. But I'm not a fan of hunting, especially when they're out there with like a rifle. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
dude, just
Yeah.
picking on an innocent animal. What did that deer ever do to you,
There's
bro?
no
What did they ever do to you? You're just gonna
Yeah.
stand from 900 yards away and shoot it down, and like,
I
ugh,
know. There's
no.
no fair fight. It's
It's
just
not
I know.
fishing. Nope, no, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Just no,
Yeah.
I definitely things that I do not, you know, uh, condone in any way. But at the very least, if you are going to eat it, I had a coworker. He would raise one pig every year, um, literally treat it like part of the family, and then send it off for slaughter. And he would be there for everything with the animal, right? For all the steps, even the slaughter, I should say.
Hmm.
So I talking to him, it didn't change my mind on it, but I did get more respect for people like him who at least are willing to look it in the face, accept for what it is. Because if we say factory farming, he says the same thing. It's gross and disgusting. He's like, look, I want to eat a pig, but I don't want to do factory farming. I'll raise it myself. I'll do it myself. Okay, well, I at least have to be able to acknowledge that that would be better in a regard, but it's definitely not the preferred because I'm not eating it anyways,
I
right?
know.
So
It's like horrifying in a different way, but it's like
yes,
yeah, but it's like for some reason like I think people always think like, "Oh, you must really hate hunters." Like, yes, I do, but also I hate people, not hate. I shouldn't say hate, but I
right.
also don't approve of, the way that like factory farming happens and how it's just become the norm, and people don't think twice in the brainwashing and the marketing. And again, it's not like yes, everyone has the power to change. You just need a little discipline. It's not that hard. You just need to wake up and do it. But it's also like our whole food system, as you know, is just a mess. So,
It truly is. And, I've tried to stay the course on that completely when it comes down to it because, there is better ways. I mean, halal, right? There are different practices that are done throughout the world that make it so at least you're eating safer things and you're doing it where you're not pumping an animal full of hormones and all kinds of chemicals, and it's just completely insane. And I remember speaking with it with my grandmother before she passed, and I remember even at a very young age she always be like, chicken doesn't taste the same anymore. And I never understood that as a kid, right? She'd be like, when we were kids, chicken tastes different, it tastes better. I'd be like, I don't get it. But now that, once I got to a certain age and I was old enough, I was like, oh, okay, because when I go to the store and buy chicken, it's not really chicken, is it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's a chicken-like product. It's not.
Yeah.
It looks like a chicken, but a good portion of it is not actually the animal itself. So
Right. And when people argue, that's another thing I get a lot is, well, processed vegan meats aren't, it's lots of chemicals. Okay, the meat you're eating from the grocery store has lots of chemicals. So, you know.
yeah, and at least I didn't have to kill Bambi to get it. In your
Exactly.
face. All right. How about that? In your face. The only one technically being harmed in that is me. All right. So
Exactly.
if I'm harming myself, I mean, it's not probably exactly the preferred method. I'm sure my therapist would be worried about it. But when it comes to the food, at least we're doing it where we're only harming ourselves. All right.
Exactly.
Um,
And I don't buy in, just real quick, I don't buy into the whole like, oh, impossible meat is so bad for you. Like, yeah, it's not like as good as eating whole foods, lentils and whatnot, but it's also like I think the meat industry and the non-vegans make it out to be much worse than it actually is. Like if I was choosing impossible meat over, regular meat, I would choose impossible meat any day. So,
any day of the week.
yeah.
Um, and inherently speaking, normally the ones that are talking about that stuff are the ignorant ones, right? I mean, those meatheads wouldn't even know that all protein comes from plants.
Yeah,
Like that's a
exactly.
revelation. I'm like, oh, we got it from the muscle. I'm like, no, you get it from a cow who ate grass, and
Yep.
the protein came from the grass,
Yep.
not from the actual muscle itself. It had so much protein in there because that cow, chicken, whatever it was eating a marginally speaking a plant-based diet. So in your
Exactly.
face, all right?
To people like, why would you go through a middleman? Just go straight to the source. Yeah.
Exactly. I said the exact same words with the whole candy thing. Why
Yep.
why get a fake synthetic strawberry? We can just eat the real strawberries, my friends. They're
Yep.
more delicious anyways. Um, so you've often addressed speciesism indirectly through practical tips. How do you see parallels between speciesism and other forms of systemic discrimination, and does that inform your inclusive, non-judgmental style?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, really, it's all oppression, right? So it's all oppression, and none of it is good. um, and I think it's what's tough with the vegan thing is as a vegan of 14 years, like sometimes I just want to like shout and shame and preach and all the things and like you probably can relate, like you just want to be like what the heck, like wake up. But also as someone living in this society with non-vegans, I recognize that most of us were raised non-vegan and marketing from the meat and dairy industries are powerful, and I don't think most people are just inherently bad and want cruelty and death. I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance and a lot of things happening. And so I think we also have to be compassionate for our fellow humans. It's tough sometimes. It's really tough. And I have gotten a lot of like pushback from other vegans for my style because it's a lot more inclusive, less judgmental. But I'm tired. I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for so long that it's like, when I was a teenager, my activism was more like in your face, like you're killing animals, this and that. But I just have learned over the years, and funny enough, like that kind of activism did kind of work on me because my cousin, like I was eating beef jerky and my cousin looked at me like, you're eating a dead cow. And I was like, oh, it clicked. But I don't think I think I already had something in my mind that was like having those thoughts, and then it kind of was the turning point. For most people who aren't having those like pre-vegan thoughts, I feel like it's not effective to just yell at them and, give them the information. Um, but yeah, we can't expect for people to have compassion for animals if we can't have compassion for them, or You just gotta like be compassionate for humans and animals and hope that people will get to the point of going vegan. I don't know.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's been something where I've had vegans come at me, and that's why I quickly said that you want to take my vegan card, take it, I don't care, because I myself at one point was very active, I myself was very preachy, and I myself, I mean, I'm not to be honest, that's a young person's game. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, being angry all the time is not good for your, my you want to talk about medical, I'm sure my doctor and my blood pressure and my therapist have been much more grateful since I've calmed down a lot, right?
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
I love to be able to scream at people? Sure, it could be therapeutic actually. However, the truth is we've come to a point uh in our world where that's just noise to most people. It's not your it may have worked in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, but
Mhm.
due to the changes in the universe, which is kind of ironic because people of a certain age would be like, well, boomers don't understand. Boomers don't understand. It's like, well, you're the first ones to say boomers don't understand, but you don't understand that those tactics were made by boomers. Okay? So your tactics no longer work, in my
Yeah.
opinion. They don't, you can't just go up and choke a person to death and say, you gotta eat this now or I'll kill you. It's
Yep.
always embarrassing to me because, like, I'm a vegan. My daughter know my children know this, and they'll see like a video online where like a lady runs into like a store and smears blood everywhere, or like they destroy artwork, very expensive artwork, and I'm just like, yeah, it's embarrassing. Like, quite
Yeah.
frankly, that's an embarrassment. You're an adult. You should be able to behave yourself, and I understand that you want to protest those people and what they're doing, but to destroy someone else's property is literally a crime.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I and it's
And go
not
ahead.
helpful.
Yeah, no, and I think someone pointed out to me yesterday, another vegan pointed out to me yesterday that like that stuff used to be more necessary because we didn't have social media. So it was like you needed to get people's attention, to get on the news or to get seen, right? And like
Exactly.
nowadays, it's like we have the platform, like let's have a conversation. We don't have to be so aggressive about it. And I don't know. I think my views on that have changed. A lot of times I do think it's the newer vegans that are so passionate and they're like, oh my gosh, and then they just have to yell at everyone. But people have been vegan for a long time. I think we all kind of are just like, yeah, like we've kind of seen what works, what doesn't work. I also have like
Right.
a marketing background, so I kind of know how to convince people of things like by without saying like buy my product. I'll just make you want to buy my product, but I'm not gonna shout it at you. You know what I mean? So I think
Exactly.
using that psychology and that marketing.
And you keep bringing up marketing, so I'll definitely bring it up, and it's something I wanted to bring up because it's most people don't understand how much of their day to day lives was decided 100 years ago by a marketing strategist, and you would think they would because there were shows like Mad Men that came out and like showed kind of a glimpse into that world, but whether it's Christmas, right? Christmas wasn't really a big thing. And then Coca-Cola came along and put a trademark on it. And breakfast wasn't a thing at all. And then marketing came along and put a stamp on it because they wanted to sell certain items. And then my favorite example, well, I should say my two favorite examples, and maybe you've heard of these ones, is shopping carts. So for a long time, for literally hundreds of years, if you wanted something, you'd have to go to that specific farm and buy whatever that specific item was. And there was no such thing as a market where you can go and just buy every single thing you'd ever need in a 20-minute time span. That wasn't possible. So when shopping, grocery stores became prevalent in the 1950s, most people were only going in there and buying what they needed for that day or that week. And that still happens in the rest of the world. I know many people
Yeah.
from Europe from Europe that they'll go to the store every day, buy what they want for that day and go home. But American marketing became shopping carts, and they actually hired models to drive their little shopping carts around and just fill stuff up all the day. So then other people will be like, oh, well, this lady did it. I guess
Right.
it's not weird if I pick out all of my groceries for the whole month, right? And now now you're almost crazy to go into a grocery store and not grab a shopping cart. You're like
Yeah.
you're
That's
almost.
interesting. Yeah.
And then the other one is pre-made, like pre I should say pre-mixed, like cakes and stuff. So, we have like the Betty Crocker and the Jiffy where you just pour in the thing and you do the whatever. Well, originally when those first came out, the average housewife didn't want them because they perceived it as they were cheating. They're like, "Oh, I literally just have to pour this powder into a bowl and mix it and I get a cake?" Like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, after a while they had to go back to formula with the marketing strategy. And all they did was they added on the box 2 eggs. Add 2 eggs to this particular cake, and you can mix the eggs in, and then you can bake the brownies or the muffins or the pancakes or whatever you're going to use that pre-made mix for. The Bisquick type of stuff, and it worked. Where people are like, oh, you have to add eggs, and I always laugh at people when they don't know that because they'll be like, yeah, you don't really need to add the eggs and that stuff. It's just marketing. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's so much of your life, like the whole idea of 3 meals a day. There was no concise time where you had to eat 3 meals a day before marketing existed.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
It,
There's so many examples for sure. It's kind of wild when you think about it. Yeah. I mean, the cigarette example is like such a good one because I think it parallels so well to veganism, but how like doctors were smoking cigarettes and they had the ads like it's good for you, and marketing will like do anything. Like it'll convince people of anything. So,
it truly will. There is actually a really great movie on it, and I really tell people that if you want to understand my arguments on food, you first have to watch this movie. But it's called Thank You for Smoking. I don't know if you've ever
oh, okay.
seen it.
I've got to write that down. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got
Thank You for Smoking. So the idea is that this particular guy, his job is he works for the tobacco industry, and his job is to essentially use marketing and strategies and ploys in order to trick people into cigarettes. And the trailer for it really was it was almost like an episode of like Ricky Lake where it's Aaron Eckhart, and he's sitting on a stage with a kid who has cancer, and this kid became cancerous because of the fact they were smoking cigarettes, and it was so beautifully done because he goes, "Well, why would we want this man to have cancer? If this person has cancer and they die, they can't buy our products anymore. So we're not intentionally giving people cancer because if everybody got cancer in our products, we'd go out of business. That doesn't make sense." And you could see visually with the audience go, "Oh, we never thought of it like that." And it's like, wow, like all you need is a really good smooth talking man in a nice suit to feed you enough BS and you will chew it up. So
Oh yeah.
highly recommend that movie as well.
Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah.
So with that being said, and we kind of just talked about this, which is why it feeds very well into how has living vegan reshaped your sense of identity, embodiment, or even your relationships to pleasure and life in, the universe itself and in your everyday life?
Yeah, I feel like going vegan was really kind of the tip of the iceberg. Maybe you can relate to this, but for me, that was kind of the turning point. And then I started getting more into health and wellness. I started getting more into fitness, into spirituality, into different things that really served me. And taking care of myself more in all ways. And I feel like before that, I was just kind of living. I mean, it's hard to say because I was younger, and so I don't have the same experience as someone who goes vegan when they're, in their 30s or something like that.
Right.
But it does feel like you're kind of just like in zombie mode, and then it kind of like wakes you up, and you're like I'm a minimalist now. It's like all of these other things just started coming into play. So it's just made my life better in so many ways because I started questioning, like you said with the marketing thing, I started questioning like all of these things that we've been told and like, do I really need to buy 1,000 presents for people on Christmas? Do I really need to, you know, whatever? And so it's just improved my life in so many ways, not just by not eating animals. That's one thing I always tell people about the not eating animals. That's like a weight lifted, like that energy from like the animals when they're killed going in you, and it's just removing that. Like I just feel lighter. I feel like I'm a nicer person. I mean, so many things. I don't know if that's what you were asking with your question, but yeah, I feel like it was kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then it just sparked so many other things in my brain that I made improvements in other aspects of my life as well.
Of course. Yeah, no, and that's realistically speaking at what I was going for. Does
Yeah.
it and maybe it's just me and maybe you don't have to answer this one, but does it make dating hard for you as well?
So I was living in LA for 10 years, and I mean the dating scene in LA and like most places nowadays with online dating, all of that was kind of just trash in general. And so
Um,
yeah, and then being adding more layers onto that of like being vegan and being a little more alternative just in your thinking and not, subscribe. I don't and some vegans, do still like all of the things and whatever. But I mean, personally, like I don't care about designer stuff. Like half the time, that stuff's not even vegan friendly. So it's like I'm not into like all the things that like your typical kind of girls into. So I'm like, that I did always think kind of differently, and so it did make it more challenging. But I met my boyfriend a little over a year ago when I moved to Virginia, and he's not vegan because I would have been one of those people. It's like, oh, I'm only gonna date a vegan, but in reality, the pool is like very small. I did a video on this too, and it's like it was very small. I couldn't date someone who, just like ate chicken in front of me and was like, "Don't you miss this?" and was like harassing me. Absolutely not. But my boyfriend's very open to it. Like he had eaten plant-based when he was training to be a boxer, like in, years ago. And so it's like he was familiar with it. He was open to it. He was willing to go to all the vegan restaurants with me. We're going to a vegan resort, next week. So it's just like he's very open to the lifestyle. And that's really, I think when someone has that kind of respect for you and they're a good person and have all the other things, then I'm not gonna like be like, oh, you're not vegan. It's just like, okay, maybe he'll go vegan, maybe he won't, but like that's a lot of times people go vegan because of the person they're dating or because of the person they marry. So
right,
yeah.
right. And and a good reason why I bring that up, to be honest, is I have found it to be much more profound to be a quiet example of veganism than a demonstrator.
Yeah.
Um, when like I said, when I first went vegan, there was a lot of spite, and there was a lot of people that were doubting me, and there was many people, even like friends, family, brothers, uncles, etc., that were just like, "You're an idiot," right?
Yeah.
And I clashed with them for a long time, and then eventually I mean, to be quite frank, I got tired of arguing with them, but I thought of myself, and I'm a veteran, so I was in the army, so I started thinking about stuff that my drill sergeant would tell me, which I do all
My
the time.
boyfriend's in the Marines, so
Here you go, here you go. So my drill sergeant would always say, to lead by example. So
yeah.
I became a quiet example, and I was doing stuff, and I started doing yoga. I dropped like 80 pounds. I got in really good
Well,
shape. So I feel like being that example and being a quiet example, more and more people were kind of, like let's say the skeptical brothers to be like, so what is it that you're actually eating, and can I try some? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I'll never forget. I have a particular uncle, and I won't put him on blast on the internet, because I love you, man. But he was like one of the first ones that are like, and I always get that, you're gonna die anyways. You might as well die happy.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And he was like, and he was on like medication for having like high cholesterol and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I guess you're choosing to die sooner than later. But I'll never forget the day he had me and my father over for dinner one time, and he was so excited to make his own salad dressing with his Nutri Ninja, and he was so proud of himself for trying to change his diet,
Yeah.
and so that just kind of solidified it for me that as much as it, I don't know, you think that the most effective way is to stand on a soapbox and scream at people. It's just not. Like it was I've been way more effective just kind of be like, yeah, I don't eat that anymore and I feel better now. So,
Yeah. I've had a similar experience. My father was, I'm not gonna say he was anti-vegan, but he was not on board when I first went like vegetarian and then vegan. And I was just visiting him in Michigan the other week, and he eats like 90% plant-based, and like he makes his own food at home. Like I'm like, who is he? Like it's wild.
yeah,
Yeah, it's wild, but it's like it just happened for me. You know, sometimes I would scream and shout, but it's like it just happened for me, like eating the way I was eating, and he really saw that and saw that it was healthier. I've showed him a few documentaries, but yeah, he just saw that, okay, this is better for my health.
yeah, and it's funny. My father did a similar thing. So shortly after that trip, my father lives in Florida. He was up here visiting family, and he had noticed that everybody was eating healthier. So he went back to his own life and thought to himself, what can I change about my diet? And my father was the kind of person that would drink like 2 glasses of milk a day.
Mm,
Like he thought
okay.
milk, he was all in the milk propaganda, thinking it was like the greatest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And the next time I saw my father, he was about 60 pounds lighter. And I was like, holy crap, like, been working out. And he's like, no, I just stopped drinking milk. And I was
That's
like,
wild. Yeah. That's wild.
and, he,
Amazing.
and so I got my father, who literally had been drinking 2 glasses of milk a day his whole life, thinking it was the greatest thing ever that you could do for your body. And he
Yeah.
just cut it out and poof. My next thing is to get my son to do that because
Okay.
I feel like it's going to be good for him to cut the milk out, especially something like he'll buy skim milk and maybe see. This is a thing like people don't know because they once again pay attention to the marketing propaganda. But like skim milk was literally, it's literally the leftovers of the leftovers. Like they made
Mhm.
milk and it
Mhm.
was whatever they have left over, they use it to make butter, and
Mhm.
then whatever they had left over, they didn't know what to do with, so they labeled it as skim milk, said it was healthier for you, and put it on the shelves. And it's like, gross,
Yeah. Yeah.
gross, gross. Um, so, and this is something that's been a hot topic for me, especially lately. Here's one for you. Well, in your videos tackling excuses like I could never go vegan when traveling or eating out with friends,
Mhm.
how do you think cognitive dissonance fuels those barriers, and what's the best way to gently dissolve it?
Uh, Yeah, I mean, I would say some of it is actually just like lack of information. Like people don't realize that you can get, some of it is lack of information. So like people don't realize you can get things when you go out to eat that aren't just salads or French fries. Like there are more options these days. It can be hard in certain cities, certain places. And same with traveling. Like there are options. And maybe it takes a little more prep or research, but there's things you can eat. So I think a lot of people think to themselves, okay, well, I could do that at home. I can grocery shop, whatever, but I still want to go out and enjoy food with my friends. It just takes a little bit of like rewiring your brain and figuring out, okay, where can I go that has options for me to eat? But I think a lot of it is sometimes just an excuse. Like sometimes it is just like, yeah, I'm never gonna do that thing. I know I should do that thing. It's good for me. I know the benefits. I have the information, but I'm still just not going to do it, you know? So I think there is like the excuse aspect. Sometimes it's like lack of information. Sometimes it's an excuse. But yeah, definitely like the cognitive dissonance going on.
Truly, the epidemic is wild. Drawing from thinkers like Peter Singer, do you lean toward equal consideration of interests across species, or do you see practical boundaries where human and social realities like traveling or dining come into play?
What do you mean by like what do you mean by traveling down? Can you rephrase?
Yeah, so to put it in a maybe more simplistic terms, right? And you kind of just touched upon it, the idea of human beings being out in the universe, because you hear it so often, right? If I go to another country, if I go to, let's say I go to Japan, right? I can't miss out on sushi because
Oh, I
where
see.
you get it from, right?
Yeah.
So what do you have like a consideration into that? Like, what do you think about those? With like, when has anybody ever said that to you, and what would you say to them? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for me, it was a concern when I first went vegan because I was gonna go to Italy to be an au pair, and I was like, oh my gosh, but I can't miss out on gelato. Like, I can't miss out on some of these like Italian foods, the cheese, the whatever, the pasta. But you've it's not the end of the world. You find alternatives. Italy was way ahead of America at that point. They just because they recognized people are lactose intolerant, so they had like vegan pizza. They had vegan gelato. They had all of those things and they were delicious. And also just like we are such a food centric society and culture and like many cultures are, but you can still go to Japan, you can still go to Italy, you can still go and enjoy the experience without consuming animal products. Like there's
Right.
more to travel and more to like, vacation than that. So I think it's just like finding those alternatives and like having gratitude for the other experience. It's not like always got to be about the food. So,
Right. And one of the things that I bring up for people is that most people just don't, because we think for such an American perspective that there are other cultures and countries that prefer not to eat meat. Like there's a very good large part of the Indian population, or I should even say like Middle Eastern, where they have something like halal foods where they're trying to cut certain things out, or kosher, or
absolutely.
the Japanese. There's actually a particular type of diet. It's a traditional Japanese cuisine for monks, because their monks normally are vegans, and
Mhm.
um, so many people don't understand that you could still get those cultural flavors without compromise, because of the fact that veganism is not inherently an American trait.
No, absolutely. And that's a really good point. Like when I first went vegan, I was eating mostly at, like Indian, Mediterranean, other types of restaurants because they just had more options for me. And actually, so my henna is from my best friend just got married this past weekend. It was an Indian wedding. Most of the food was vegan, like just because it was. Like
Exactly.
it was incredible. Usually there's like no options for me to eat at weddings. This one, it was like so many options. I was like so full. I was like, this food is incredible. So,
Right. And um, I kind of have a double whammy because I have the celiacs.
mm.
Do you ever get stuck? And because I've had this question, and you kind of brought that up, so I'm gonna piggyback off it. But do you ever get stuck having to bring your own food to places?
Um, no, I mean there have been times where I just like haven't eaten, and I'll just eat after. But no, I think typically there's like usually something, and I think also at this point in my life because I've been vegan so long, when I'm going to like events, and if my friends all kind of know, so they'll either like let me know ahead of time so I can eat something, or they'll like make sure to have something there that I can eat. So I feel like people have been in my life have been pretty considerate. um I mean, if I'm going, I'm honestly not like, surprisingly, like I'm not the most social person, so I'm not like going to events all the time. Um, so so it's not typically a concern, but I always keep protein bars in my car just in case. Yeah.
Okay, me too, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I just never know if I'm gonna get stuck somewhere and starve to death. Especially with the
Yeah.
gluten-free thing. Like having to find something gluten-free and vegan in a
Yeah.
in a food
That's
desert,
more tricky. Yeah.
it's not as simple. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's, I guess, my fault for choosing one. I didn't choose them both. The other one chose me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, I do find myself having to bring some stuff sometimes, or I do say that when it comes to certain events and aspects, I'm always very appreciative when someone does make sure to take care of me. I can,
Yeah.
even if it's like they just give me a bagged salad from the store, like a pre-made chopped salad. I'm like, hey, we're good. I've been made fun of many times by my aunt because I'll go to her house. I'll literally just take the entire head of lettuce, slice off the end, and just eat it like that. Like I don't need dressing. Dressing is just extra calories. Who needs that? So just rinse it off, man. We'll be fine. Um, so the next one is about running a vegan publication in the past. How was that experience for you?
Um, It was incredible, and I had so many great positive experiences. I sold the company last year, and it was a huge relief, like weight off my shoulders. I think running any kind of company is extremely stressful and exciting and great and wonderful. Um, but there were definitely like unique challenges that I faced as a vegan business and as a media company, but it definitely set me up for what I'm doing now. So I'm extremely grateful. I had met so many amazing people, built a huge network of other vegans, and uh, so yeah, I mean, it was awesome, and I loved it, and it was a time of my life that I'm very grateful for. But I am also glad to not be doing it anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not as glamorous as some people would present it to be. And I did have to chuckle when you said you're not as social because, relatively speaking, I guess you're just making all these videos, right? So it would make sense. If you were social, they'd be all be in the video. So I guess it shouldn't have been a shock to the system. You're like, you don't do that. Like, really? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It took a split second, but my brain got there with you. And I don't know. Now my brain's just going off on the wonderful idea of going to Italy. That sounds like a great plan. I have my grandparents were Sicilian, so I've been teasing the idea of reclaiming Italian citizenship through that, and it is a perpetual pain to do so. But
Yeah.
now I'm hungry, so it sounds like a great plan. um, does your approachable, food-focused approach feel like a form of modern, like, liberation from cultural habits that no longer serve us?
Yeah, just like how we were talking about like my form of activism, is that what you mean? Compared
Yes,
to,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
compared to like the old school. Yeah, I think so. I mean, um yeah, I think just like showing people by doing and showing people by great food and showing people by giving them the information and the resources and the tools like is the most effective. And I do see the shift. Like there's always going to be the animal rights groups and the preachy vegans out there, but I do see a shift of people welcoming others into the community and into just this different way of eating. Like even if you don't go 100% vegan, like can you go mostly plant-based, right? So, yeah.
Meatless Monday. I've
Start there.
I've had so many people send me like a picture on Snapchat going, "I'm trying a Meatless Monday today. It's the first time ever." And I'm
Yep,
like, "Look, that's one less thing that had to get murdered today." Like
exactly.
some people would be on the soapbox and screaming like, "Oh, well, you should do whatever." Like, listen, they're trying. Some
Yep.
people can't do it overnight. Some people aren't lunatics, okay? Some people and people say, "Are you calling people?" I'm calling myself a lunatic. I one day I literally woke up and I said, "Never again," and I've never had. Literally that day I went vegan and gluten free and I haven't turned back. So I understand most people can't do cold turkey like a crazy person like me.
Yep. Yep. It's just baby
Genuinely
steps.
did.
One step at a
Baby
time.
step.
Everything's a win. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, what do you say? And this is a question I've gotten, and I'm always curious what other people have to how they answer this. What do you say to people who call it a privilege for us to be vegans?
Yeah. I've heard that a lot lately, but it's absolutely not. As we mentioned, like Indian culture, like people have been eating mostly vegan. Um, for a long time, and that's just like the staple of their diet. And not every Indian person is like wealthy. It's just part of their culture, right? And so if we're talking about wealth privilege, but also just privilege of like having the time and the education, like it's just, I mean, that argument, there's so many things wrong with that argument, because my mom also said, even here in America, like my mom also said she grew up poor, and it was the times when they had the most money when they could buy meat, but usually she was just eating beans and whatever they could, whatever vegetable came out of a can, you know? Um, so yeah, if we look at other cultures, it's rice, beans, like vegetables are staples. Like I mentioned, India, um, Jamaica, like there's so many like Ethiopia, there's so many
Asia,
cultures, right?
Africa.
Um, and then I mean, even like Asia, like places where the meat is the smaller, it's not like a huge serving of meat. And so yeah, so we look at other cultures, and then we also look at what's happening in America, and plant-based foods are some of the cheapest foods, and meat products are heavily subsidized that make them cheaper. But yeah, I think when people don't have a whole lot of money, they're typically eating things like bag of rice, bag of beans, things that you can get really, really cheap.
And I genuinely am enjoying your answers here because it's not too dissimilar from my own. I have so many people, and we talked about it, right? The idea of like going to a restaurant and they're like, oh, all I can buy is as a salad. I never go to a restaurant and buy a salad. Why would I
Mm-hmm.
go to a restaurant and pay $15 for a salad? Do you know how
Mm-hmm.
much salad I can get at the store for $15? I could
Mm-hmm.
get a day's worth of. Have you ever tried to buy cabbage? Okay, it's like 25 cents a pound, all right?
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
Okay, so I could, for what someone buys for one steak, I could get like 20 pounds of cabbage, okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
genuinely my answer when people are like, it's a privilege, I'm like, you have you not been ever shopping in your entire life?
Yeah.
Steak is so much more expensive
It's so expensive.
than my
Yeah, absolutely.
salad. Like for your one slab of meat, I could get a week's worth of vegetables. It's genuinely mind blowing how many people answer with these fallacies, these
Yeah.
genuine, and it's almost a challenge at times to be like, but look at the numbers. It's simple math. Math is a science. It's a provable fact. I bought all of this for $10 and you bought that for 25. So how is it that I am privileged to be able to do this when it's cheaper? That doesn't.
No, people will try to justify anything. So, yeah.
Valid. Yes, just go on the internet, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what. I could be like, the sky is actually purple, and I'm sure there's at
Yeah.
least 42 websites out there to be like, yeah, back in the day it was purple, and you're just like, oh my god, this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I'm gonna ask this one, right? You've shared about high protein vegan days and your love for food. Um, how has that how is I guess first question I should really say is, especially since what we said earlier, have you had any pushback when you talk about that type of stuff?
With protein?
Yeah, like
Or
high protein vegan days, like you're gonna protein load.
yeah, no, I mean, I don't think so. I think right now everyone's obsessed with protein just because of like
Right.
the climate. And so, there's the meat eaters who are like, "Oh yeah, plant-based protein isn't as superior as, meat." But no, I mean, I think people, it just depends on people. The thing about protein is like you don't really have to try, like as long as you're eating, you probably are getting enough protein to survive. And eating like a balanced diet, but I never really think much about protein. I do know that fiber and protein keep me full. So if I'm having a day where I'm working out a lot, moving a lot, I'll just make sure to eat plenty of protein. But yeah, not a ton of like pushback there.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
just for me, anytime I try to talk about protein, they're like, "Well, how do you even get it? You're a vegan. It's not
Oh
possible."
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm just like, Okay, bro. What are the and maybe a sidebar here, and maybe you've heard this as well, but I've gotten so many questions from females especially, right? Where they try to give me a story about how like maybe during their teenage years or their early 20s, they tried to go vegetarian and then they got sick and then they stopped being vegetarian and then they had a negative connotation with the idea of vegetarian or vegan because of that sickness. Have you
Yep.
had that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times people will go vegetarian or vegan, but they're one, not eating enough. So it's like you have to still eat food. And then two, they are maybe just like when I first went vegetarian, I was eating like macaroni and cheese and like Oreo. You know what I mean? It's like what are you eating? Like that's what I would like to know. Like how did you do it? What were you eating? You probably just weren't getting the nutrients you need. You have to make sure you're still getting the nutrients. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you so much on that because that's my next question is, well, what were you eating? And it literally was they were eating the same things, but like just taking the chicken out. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you
I,
have to like replace it. Yeah.
I'm not a doctor here, but you may want to like add a multivitamin to your repertoire. You may want to actually replace that whatever it was that you were supposed to be getting with something else because just saying, well, I'm going to eat a package of Oreos because they're vegan, that's not exactly nutritionally dense and
Yeah.
it's not how like logic and common sense works. And it's something, it's I mean, there's a reason why I used to have a podcast called The Not So Common Sense, trying to point out how there's a general lack of common sense, but
Mhm.
it's just kind of wild to me how many fallacies are out there. And it's like, and I say it to them in all due respect. I'm like, listen, you did it and you tried your best, but someone should have been there. You should have talked to a medical professional, to be quite frank, and got the supplements needed in your diet, and then you probably wouldn't have gotten sick in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
and I always get that question, like, do you have like no energy? Do you have low energy? Are you falling asleep?
No,
I'm
it's like
like,
quite the opposite. Yeah.
yeah, if I were to eat something like that, then my body's just trying to digest it, and then I'm falling asleep on the couch, like it's not good. Um, so only have a couple more for you here, and this has been really great. So once again, thank you so much. I feel like you've been able to say so many things that maybe I wouldn't have had for that perspective, but then again, other things that I definitely have been dying to say, but I don't want to stand on the soapbox anymore. I'm done. Um, and now I'm curious about this. Knowing what you've been through, knowing where you are, do you have plans for the future? Like, where do you see yourself going with your social media channels from now on?
Yeah, I mean, I just hope to keep growing it. It's been an amazing ride so far. I really started focusing on my accounts like late October and like really started taking it seriously. So it's been an amazing ride and journey and growth so far. I want to just keep reaching as many people as I can, getting this information out there, normalizing veganism, and just showing people that it is accessible and you don't have to like be someone special to like go vegan. Like anyone can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful sentiment, and I do feel like there are far too many social stigmas around the whole idea of putting that label on, and it's like if that label is what's stopping you from doing something you want to do, then just don't use the label, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Like I'd rather have somebody doing the thing that made them feel best and not feeling the pressures of having that label on themselves
Yep.
than to run away from it and be like, well, I'm going to keep eating this chicken because I'm afraid of having that vegan label and I'm afraid the last it's very odd to feel like people are terrified of your experiences as a vegan. It's kind of a surreal experience. So
Hmm. Exactly.
have you had those type of people come up to you at all? Like whether it's the people who tried to be vegan and they got sick, or like maybe some people that really want to do it but they're afraid.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the time, definitely. Yeah. Um, and I think I think it is just taking that like stigma away and like giving people education like you said, it's like when people go vegan, vegetarian, and they got sick, it's like it's not the vegan or the vegetarian, it's the what they were eating. So it's just labels are necessary for reasons, but it does sometimes complicate things. And like if you just ate more plant-based food, you'd be better off, and you don't even have to call yourself vegan. So yeah.
Yeah, I that's brilliant. Now this is something that I've said to my children on a couple of occasions, and maybe you can tell me if you have a different distinction, but I feel like we're starting to win this war, man. um, when I had a flat tire once, and we got stuck at a shop getting them to repair it. And I went across the street to 7-Eleven of all places. And I walked in there, and 7-Eleven had their own brand of organic juice that was made in, I think, in like Istanbul.
Hmm.
And my brain just could not fathom the idea that a gas station was selling its own brand of organic juice.
Hmm.
And I myself was very excited. And I said, hey man, I guess the I always try to be, more facetious because I don't want to seem like I'm tooting my own horn or anything. So I always say that we're the evil empire. We're showing up to steal your steak away. Uh, so I told my kids, hey, the evil empire is winning. Look, we even got juice at 7-Eleven. Have you had any of like maybe an experience going to a grocery store or a restaurant or something, seeing those particular items and then being excited over it?
Oh, all the time. I mean, anytime I see any kind of vegan option, or just like whether it's accidentally or purposefully or just a healthier option, um, for sure. Like I will take a picture, I will tell people like, yeah, no, it's exciting to see those options. We have a long way to go, but it is like motivating and inspiring when you start to like see that out in the real world, that like some places are trying to make changes and are trying to like do better by people. Yeah. And
Yeah,
of course, it's going to make money. So
yes.
if it's trending, they're going to sell it. Yeah.
They're gonna try to make money. And I remember when I first, changed my diet and changed my life really. Um, we had like three things at the grocery store, and now we have aisles of stuff. So
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
it, it's pretty incredible. And there's places where you couldn't even go to eat, and now, up here in New England, they're all pretty much owned by each other or in direct competition with each other. But there's six distinct restaurants that have, kind of a smaller chain, and they're very allergy friendly. You can get anything changed with them whatsoever. So I frequent these ones. Shout out to Tavern in the Square. It's like my favorite restaurant of all time, and there's like 25 of them in New England.
Oh,
But you
cool.
can you can get anything like dairy free or whatever. I remember I went to there's Burton's Grill, 110 Grill. I think I went to the 110 Grill, and I could get like a gluten free, dairy free, yada yada yada. I always just say that because I get, sometimes like I want a cheeseburger, and they're like, "You're gonna have a regular cheeseburger, not a vegan cheeseburger." I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
a yada yada burger, okay, guys?
Yeah,
Ready?
exactly.
I'm not changing it. But I was able to get like I think it was like pretzel bites or something for the first time in like 15 years or whatever, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's the greatest
People
day
are
of my life.
Yeah, I think because of like how common allergies are these days, people are like more like catering toward that, which is really nice to see. I mean not everywhere, but it's nice to see that. Yeah.
And one thing I kind of wanted to I don't know, maybe close out on, and you travel and you go more places than I do, so maybe you can help me along with this one. But I've noticed a lot of like even gluten-free bakeries, they'll have vegan options. Um, so because essentially what I'm trying to do here is give anyone who's watching this, who's thinking about maybe they would want to go I'm sorry, vegan, places where they could eat, and like basically a general concept of maybe restaurants that would have it. And we talked about the idea of like Indian and Mediterranean and Asian in general. There's normally really good stuff. But
Yep.
for the uninitiated, I've noticed that the people who take allergies serious are normally the first people that take the veganism serious. And you could tell me if it's different somewhere else, but that's what I've noticed in my short time.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think they kind of go hand in hand. And like my best friend is vegetarian and has a seafood allergy, and like she'll only eat at vegan restaurants because it's like I think it's just more inclusive. Like if you have vegan options and they're gluten free and they're whatever, it's like then everyone can eat it, right? And I think people are just more aware of that. It goes both ways.
Right. And for anybody I've terrified with by saying the words gluten free, we've come a long way, guys. Some of our stuff isn't terrible anymore, okay?
Yep.
We're not just rice cakes, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, most of that impossible meat is not all of it, but a good chunk of the impossible meat is made out of pea protein. So there is stuff like the hot dogs and whatever, those are made out of gluten. And I've had to try to tell people, because the idea of vital wheat gluten is the number one protein substitute on earth. Like most people don't understand that, like, if you were having protein in your diet previous to modern era America, you were getting it from your bread.
Hmm.
Period.
Hmm.
You were. So that's why it was always used as and I say substitute in the idea of it's substituting the chicken or the meat, right?
Hmm.
Substituting the meat. Um, some people just don't seem to understand that, and I let them know, hey, my diet is more limited, so you can't do it. But there's all kinds of vegan restaurants that make. There's a place called My Thai Vegan in Boston, and they make like fake like yada yada duck, yada yada turkey, all that stuff out of vital wheat gluten, and it's
Yep.
for those other people who aren't having my allergies, they can partake in that, and I feel like it's very important to point that out. Um, do you have like a favorite restaurant or a favorite spot?
Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of my favorites like have closed down just because the restaurant industry in general.
Valid.
But I'm going to London soon, and like some of the best vegan restaurants are in the UK, in my opinion. But like around here, I think it's the area I'm in Virginia is like there's not a whole lot of options. So like some of the go-tos just for like vegan options are like Blaze Pizza. Like I mostly cook at home now because there's not a whole lot of options, but if people are listening to this and they don't have a vegan restaurant in their town, you can find options at like Blaze or Kava or even like Noodles and Co. Like there's always options. Yeah, I mean my favorite spots are like in Los Angeles and in London. I don't know if I could narrow it down to like one favorite. It's just amazing to have so many options.
Yeah. And for those people who might have watched my previous episode, when she says the word kava, she means the Mediterranean restaurant that starts with a C and not the beverage that starts with a K. All right.
Yes.
So, because I happen to be part of the Root Awakening Kava Bar in Nashua, New Hampshire, where we sell the ancient beverage made by folks of the Pacific Islands, and it is a natural anti-anxiety beverage. So, just not to throw off the listeners who might have literally today watched that episode. Kava, the sea kava with the C. Those have been popping up in a lot of places, even around here, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. So, but yeah, no. I'm pretty sure we've hit. And the funny thing is, I feel like I had like an extra 10 questions that I was going to ask, but you genuinely just answered those things anyways, just coming up in your natural repertoire, which was brilliant. So, um, once again, I very much appreciate your time. Do you have like since we're still here, do you have anything you want to say to the audience? Like, do some same shameless self promotion or maybe a message for the audience at all?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not following me, Maggie Eats Vegan on Instagram and TikTok, but I would just say, like, even if you're not in a position today where you want to jump into veganism, just think about what you can do, whether it's that one meal, meatless Mondays, you know, one day a week or a few days a week. What can you do to incorporate more plant-based options and less meat into your diet? Because it's so important, not just for the animals and the environment, but also your health. So, Yeah, here is your prompt to do something about it starting today.
Wonderful. And my last thing that I wanted to bring up, and maybe you can concur with me, is there is no one grocery store that is the same. So what I mean by that for the uninitiated is you can go to, like myself, if I want to make a certain thing, like let's say I want to bake a cake, I gotta go to like 4 or 5 different stores sometimes to get the ingredients because not all stores have the exact same stuff. And that can be maybe overwhelming for some of the people who are uninitiated in that. I don't know if you've had a similar experience with certain things.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it depends. I guess it depends on like what stores you have around you and where you
Right.
shop. There's also some great like online alternatives like Thrive Market, things like that. But yeah, I typically will go to multiple stores anyway, just because selection is different. Yeah.
Of course. And I always try to remind people that just because you've tried one thing doesn't mean you've tried them all, right? You might have had um, a veggie patty burger, and those aren't going to taste the same as an impossible burger or
Yep.
any of those type of like, fake meats. They are completely different things. And I've had so many people say, "Oh, well, I tried this one vegan cheese one time and it was gross." And it's like, well, what was it made out of? Because it
Yep.
could be made out of soy or coconut or cashew. Just because you tried one soy cheese doesn't mean you've tried the coconut cheese or the cashew cheese or the whatever cheese or you've tried this one particular brand doesn't mean you've had them all. And I don't know if you've had that people come at you with those experiences as well.
100%. And also my response would be, that one bad chicken you had at that one restaurant didn't stop you from eating chicken. So like,
Mm,
just keep trying.
keep
Keep trying
trying.
different brands. Yeah.
Exactly, because different brands have different blends. Like
Yeah.
myself, gluten free is the same way. There might be one that's all rice and it's a rice noodle, and there's some that's like half potato, half rice, and they
Yep.
taste different. They have a different texture and consistency. That's the same thing with vegan food. Like you could literally go to a place and it could be the same chicken sandwich, but there's actually a really great there's a place called the Purple Rooster in Attleboro, Massachusetts. This particular person makes all of their vegan meats from scratch. I
Mhm.
don't know what they use in there. I'm sure the thing's proprietary, but I know it's gluten free and soy free. But they have hot dogs and chicken nuggets and all kinds of stuff that they actually make on their own. And I've had plenty of like fake chicken and stuff. This stuff tastes completely different than anything I've had in a package before, my friend. So
Yep.
like just because you've tried that one thing doesn't mean you've tried everything. So please don't give up so easily.
Yes.
And it can be frustrating and maybe you got to get it from 4 different places, but there are places like you said, Thrive Market. There's plenty of places. Amazon delivers on the internet. There's a bunch of ways of getting it. And we live in a golden age. I literally could take my phone out right now and just boom, and something delivers by 7 a.m. tomorrow.
Yep.
There's a robot. I don't want to say the robot's names because it's going to go off. It rhymes with
Mhm.
Schmexa, right? I could say, hey, Schmexa, get me this thing, and poof, it delivers in 5 hours. Okay, guys? We live in a golden age of the universe where you could find stuff. And I use stuff like textured vegetable protein. I don't know if you're a fan of that at all,
Yep.
but
TVP. Yep. Mhm.
TVP, you could put that in all kinds of stuff. And if you're not familiar with recipes, use it. And Google search is not really your friend. You can always use something like ChatGPT or Grok or something, and it could literally tell you how to cook those things appropriately, give you a video on it, find a video for you, and create a recipe. I don't know how many times I've been like, I can't find a good recipe for this that's gluten free and vegan, and I've just gone to Grok and said, this is what I want to make. It has to be gluten free and vegan, and it has to be items that I can normally get at a grocery store. And it poof pops out a recipe that I can just text myself, right? And I can bake a whatever it is and be all set. So I don't know if you've had similar experiences with that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like for recipes, noracooks.com is like Like she doesn't miss. I feel like I swear by that and her recipes. But yeah, you can there's so many resources these days that like you said, you can pop it into ChatGPT, you can Google it, you can whatever. You can go on Instagram and scroll. Like there's just so many recipes out there. So
Right. And if you want more information, go ahead and follow Maggie Eats Vegan. There you go. You can get it all day, my friends. Now, for good housekeeping, the this episode is in the series of my bonus episodes. The next episode will actually feature a special makeup effects artist who also happens to do some of the body makeup art as well. So once again, these bonus episodes, as I'm calling them, are really just things that I'm into that people ask me about, and I'm tired of answering. So having very interesting, very special, amazing people like Maggie come and talk to me so you don't have to just hear me cry about it for an hour and a half. All right, guys? It's going to be great. But with that being said, Maggie, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for helping me on this journey. Very much preaching to the choir, and I appreciate your time.
of course, thanks so much for having me.
Right? For anybody else, we're gonna make sure Sean Vegan Keegan hopefully brings home the gold. And everybody else have a good day. Peace.